we're excited to talk to you about blogging today. And if you remember, blogging is a critical element because, content really is the fuel that makes your lead funnel go. And blogging is a key component of that fuel, if you will. And we really love blogging for basically three reasons. One, blogging is great from a search engine optimization perspective, right? The shelf life of a blog, once you write one and get it on your website, is forever. Google will come and crawl that, and then they'll add it to their search engine results, and people do searches on the topic of your blog. And a year from now, if you write a blog today, you could still be getting traffic. Versus like a social post where you put a post up there, and what do you think the shelf life of a social post is, Lisa? Maybe an hour, maybe a day?
Not even a day.
Yeah,
A little bit less than an hour, probably.
Yeah, that's right. So it definitely has longer shelf life. The other reason why blogs are really important, though, is they are bridges from the social platforms over to your website. Because when you do write a blog and then you promote the blog on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, it's like, hey, check out our latest blog on whatever the topic is. Well, when they click the link, where do they go? They go to your website. So it's a great way of siphoning, our personas, our target audience out of social into your website. And then the last reason why blogs are really important is it gives you that opportunity to establish authority. And remember, that's a key part of the funnel, is that we want to communicate to our folks that we are qualified to solve their problem. And when they're reading your blogs, there's this trust transference that occurs between, you as the subject matter expert, or as we call the guide in our lead funnel, as somebody that can help them solve their problem. So let's go ahead and dig right in here, folks, and just take a look at what we're going to cover today, and a little bit deeper. And the reason why we wanted to talk about blogs is, it really touches three critical phases of the funnel. The first phase is the topic phase, right? So we spent a lot of time, as you went through the course, in lesson 5, just talking about how to come up with really great topics, and blogs are a great place to express those topics. Also, in activating your audience, search engine optimization is a big place where your audience goes. Remember, 70 or 80% of the time, I can't remember the stat really, but it's a large number of the time that folks are going to go to search engines to begin their search to look for how to solve problems. And blogs, as we mentioned earlier, will help you do that. And then finally, in establishing authority, right? It's one of the two critical elements in establishing authority, is having that blog where you can say, hey, I am qualified to solve that problem for you, but I also do care about solving that problem for you. Now, we're going to deconstruct one of our own blogs today as we go through this lesson. And so I wanted to really pick one of our best ones. I pulled a gem, if you will, out of our storehouses, and we're ranking #1 for this key phrase in Google, which is B2B video marketing. You can see that right here, that we've got the #1 listing there. And so I thought what we would do today is basically just deconstruct that blog as we walk through these 8 critical elements. And so let me go ahead and just start the process here. And Lisa, help me out as we go through. I'd love to get your perspective and to have you share that with the group. But, #1, we have to start with a key phrase. Why is that important, Lisa?
Well, you have to be able to be found.
Right.
So whatever your key phrase is, you want to make sure that Google could find that.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be found. If people are going to be doing searches and that's how they're going to start a buying process, we want to understand what those keywords are. We want to be found for them. So we want to build our topics really around, what is that key phrase they might search for. And then #2 is the persona. That's important, right?
Right, because you have to know who your audience is and who you're speaking to. So you need to make sure that you're tailoring your content towards your audience.
That's right. And sometimes you can write towards one of your personas. If you remember in the course, we talked about 3 different types of personas you need to consider in the B2B world. And you might write a blog for one of those personas, or you might write a blog that really meets the needs of all 3. And you'll see in our example today that we're really talking to all 3 personas. And then #3 is we need to develop your headline. If you guys remember, we gave you a great tool. I'll highlight that in a second to help you come up with a good headline, because you could have a good key phrase, you could write to the right persona, but if you have a boring headline, Lisa, is anybody going to even read it?
No, it has to be catchy. It has to capture your attention. You have to want to read what's in that content, what's in that blog.
Right. One of the things that we sometimes say is, the headline is there to get the person to want to read the blog. The first sentence of the blog is there to get somebody to want to read the second sentence. The second sentence of the blog is there to make them want to read the rest of the blog. So the headliner is really kind of that critical first step. And then number 4, we have to create the gap. If you remember, people are trying to solve problems. That's why they're even talking to you in the first place. And if we're not talking about problems, then they're really not interested. And so every good blog starts with, hey, here's a problem, here's a gap, and now we're going to teach you how to fill that gap. And so let's go ahead and just take a look at this particular blog. I'm going to pull it up real quick if I can find it on my desktop. Here it is. Okay, so let me pull that up.
So Paul, while you're looking for that, I do have a couple of questions that we're gonna just pause and answer. So Christian is asking, is there a suggested word for blogs for SEO, for best SEO practices? And one of the things that we say, and please chime in, is anywhere between 900 and 1200 words is an average length of a blog for SEO practices.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you nailed it, Lisa. Around 1,000 words, right, is a really good number when you're thinking about writing a blog. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but like you said, 900 to 1,200 or so words, that's really good. So
and then
yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
A suggested length for headlines specifically. We don't want them to go on, but we don't want them to be too short. So they have to be catchy. So what would you say there, Paul?
Statistically, 7 to 10 word headlines are really probably a good number. That's not too long. It's not too short. Really, the key with your headline is to really draw that interest, to make them want to, see what you've got to say on whatever the topic is. Any more questions, Lisa?
No, that's all, but thanks, Christian, for asking those questions.
Yeah, you bet. So let's take a look at this blog. I've got it right here in front of us. I'll just kind of highlight a few things that we covered already as the first 4 of the 8 elements. And the first one was have a key phrase. So you noticed earlier that, we're the number one organic listing for B2B video marketing. And you can see the reason why is we've got it right there in our headline. So you want to make sure that you know what your key phrase is, and you want to use that in your headline for sure. And your workbook had a lot of detail on how to optimize a blog, so we won't spend a ton of time on that in this lesson today. Number 2 was consider your persona. I mentioned already, this particular blog we wrote for all 3 personas because we know that video marketing is really important at the influencer level, as well as the decision maker level and the the manager level. So number 3 is develop your headline. And I do want to just highlight, while we're on headline, just remember this great resource that we have here, the topic suggestion worksheet, where we've given you basically, what was that game called? Was it Mad Libs? Did you ever do Mad Libs with your kids, Lisa?
I did. Those were fun, where you fill in the blank with some fun word. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we kind of took that Mad Libs approach to this 100 topic suggestion worksheet. So once you have your key phrase in mind, just simply go to this resource and pick one of these 100 topics, and that will help you come up with a really good topic for your blog. Now, let me get back to the blog here real quick. And you can see that, in our headline, we're actually asking a question. And in asking that question, we're also creating the gap or the problem. So I love headlines that have a question, and I love headlines that have a question that also create the gap or identify the problem. So in this headline, we've got 2020 will be the year for B2B video marketing. Are you ready? So we're creating the gap right there, because people are going to think to themselves, I don't know, am I ready? And so I better read this blog to see if I'm ready. So those are all examples of how to accomplish those first 4 elements. And I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to Lisa and me here in the slides, and we can just look at what the next 4 are. So Lisa, you're back on camera. You've been gone for a while as I've been full screen, but we're going to cover now the next 4. And so starting with number 5, we've got to put meat on the bones. What do we mean by that, Lisa?
You need to come up with some juicy content. You have to have some really good value that you're adding in the blog. You want to make sure that you're not just writing something to write something, but that it's really going to speak to your audience. It's going to give them some value. It's going to just share something that they might not know that you know because you're the expert.
That's right, because it takes about 4 or 5 minutes to read a blog. And the thing that we say at Vindy all the time is at the end of reading that blog, we want the user to walk away and go, you know what, that was a good use of 4 or 5 minutes of my time, right? And so we want to make sure that, we're putting stats in there, we're giving examples, something that, they didn't already know, that we're sharing, kind of enlightening them. So we really need to have meat on the bones. If we don't, then they're going to walk away and not feel like you're the guide, right? Kind of feel like maybe you bait and switch them, which we don't want to do. And then number 6, we want to ask a question and answer a question in our blog as a call out. And why is that important, Lisa?
Well, going back to getting found, SEO, search purposes, but you also want to make sure that you're letting your audience know, hey, this was a question that we asked and we're answering it for you, so that your blog actually defines a little bit more about what the purpose is of the blog.
Right. Google really is doing everything they can to answer questions in the search results today. And so when you call out a question answer, it's going to give you a better chance to make your website show up in those search results. And just like Lisa said, I mean, a lot of people don't read word for word the entire blog. And so if you pull out a call out that's a question answer, that's going to give you a high probability that they're going to read that question, read the answer. And so you really want it to be something that's going to be an aha moment for them, for sure. But we found that that works really well. And then number 7, for the kind of the same reason I just described, we want to have those key takeaways at the end of the blog, because that's for that skimmer. And I don't know about you, Lisa, I skim probably 90% of the blogs that I read. I maybe read 10% of the blogs. How about you?
Yeah, most of the content that I read on social, on blogs, I'm skimming. So
Right.
when you have the question answers and the key takeaways where they're really standing out, that tends to be where your eyes are going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just, for that scammer, gives them a chance to really get the essence of what you're trying to share. And then finally, number 8, what is the most important part of any blog, Lisa?
Um, I'm
Call to
sorry.
action. Sorry.
I don't. I'm a little delayed here on my screen, so I'm so sorry.
No
But
worries.
yeah, you have to have a call to action. So you always want to make sure that you are giving them value and then letting them know, hey, how can you get a hold of us? How can you get in touch with us? What is the next step to take from here?
Right. So let's take a look at these 4 on our blog. I'll go ahead and pull that blog back up again, and we'll just go look at these 4 one by one. So let me pull that up. And so here's our blog again. And the first thing we want to talk about is meat on the bones. And you'll notice this blog, Christian, you asked that great question earlier about, how many words. Well, this is absolutely every bit of 1,200 words. And you'll notice right away, we've got a lot of meat on the bones. So we give 8 examples of business video. So examples are a great type of meat on the bones. Statistics are also another great type of meat on the bone. So you can see we've got 8 examples. We've pulled these in from the web of all these different types of blog content or video content that you can produce. And then notice up here at the top, we have a lot of statistics. And so we're definitely educating our customer on a lot of things about video marketing that they probably didn't know. And then right below that, you can see here is where we have that question answer call out. So we're asking the question, and this is the easiest framework for developing a question answer. Take whatever the topic of the blog is and just simply say, what is, right? So in our case, this is a blog about B2B video marketing. So we ask the question, what is B2B video marketing? And then 1 or 2 sentences, we answer that in a call out. And then let me jump on down to the bottom and you'll see the last 2 pieces. And that is our key takeaways. Like I said, this is a long one, so let me get down there. Oh, there we go. Here's our key takeaways. So if somebody wanted to skim the blog, they could certainly just read those. And then we end almost every one of our blogs with this "can we help" paragraph, where we're trying to connect the dots between whatever the topic of the blog was and how they can take the next step with us. Remember, in the course, we talk about the next step plan. So we always want to connect those dots between this topic and the next step, which you can see right here is, schedule a consultation, which is the first step of our next step plan. Now we do have a bonus call to action that we used in this particular case. I'll show it right up here at the top. Hopefully I'm not making your car sick as I drive around so much, but notice that we kind of snuck in a call to action right here at the top that we call a marketing tip. And basically saying, if you're looking for some ideas on how to do video marketing, give us a call. And obviously when they click the link, it takes them to our contact form. So those are just a few of the ways that you can implement these, items 5 through 8. And Lisa, I don't know, are there some questions that we can answer related to those that came out of the group?
Yes, I have one more question for you from Christian, and he's asking, how should I choose where to pull statistics for my blog? Are there specific resources that are more reputable than others?
Boy, that is a really great question, Christian. And I will tell you that, every industry has its reputable sources. For example, in our industry, we've got SEO Moz, and we have, SEM Rush and other places like that that you can go and, get information. Social Media Examiner might be another one. But one thing that I would recommend is, every industry tends to have like industry organizations, and those organizations tend to have websites that have statistical data. So those industry association websites are really good. Also, just doing research on your own and looking at, doing a search for, top challenges, facing persona. One of the things we teach in the course. And a lot of those sites that will pop up with what those top challenges are often authority sites. So those are a couple of ways that you can do that. Any other questions, Lisa?
No, that's it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. Our plan is to come live every week. It won't always be Lisa and me. It'll also be other teams, other folks from the Vindy team, rather. And we're anxious to share with you some of the findings that we're experiencing and understanding as we do internet marketing day in and day out for our full service clients. We want to share those things with you. So without further ado, you guys have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for joining us on Friday Live. Y'all have a great weekend.